A very good evening, everyone. So, on the behalf of Kashmir University of Agricultural Sciences and Technology, Team Just Agriculture and Agro-Environmental Education and Farmers Welfare Society Punjab, I, Himani Gautam, cordially welcome you all to the fifth day of this 7 days International Faculty Development Program on improving the writing skills of earlier career researchers. So, our motto to organize this program is to guide the early career researcher that how they can select an appropriate research topic and how they can just draft their research or review paper and what are the do's and don'ts while writing a research paper and many more things. So we just want to encourage the early career researchers to go for more publication and improve their resume with the help of their publication. And for that we have a series of experts or national and international guests for guiding you. So in this series, our today's guest is Dr. Sendil R. So Dr. Sendil R is presently serving as an associate professor at the Department of Economics, School of Management, Pondicherry University, and he has around 15 years of experience in research and development, including the coveted agriculture research service at Indian Council of Agriculture Research, and 7-year experience in teaching and mentorship at ICR National Dairy Research Institute. So, sir has published 118 research papers in peer-reviewed national and international journals, and has been honored with several recognition, including the Lal Bahadur Sastri Outstanding Young Scientist Award from ICR, and he is the fellow of the Society for Advancement of Wheat and Barley Research. And sir has been awarded with Dr. R.T. Joshi Award from Agricultural Economics Research Association India, and Young Agriculture Economist Award and Best Worker in Scientist category from ICR Indian Institute of Wheat and Barley Research, and Professor Mahatmim Singh Memorial Award and Uma Lele Mentorship Award from the Agricultural and Applied Economics Association, USA, and Netherlands Fellowship Grant and ICR Agriculture Research Institute Fellowship for pursuing PhD. And sir was the University Gold Medal during his post-graduation at Acharya N.G. Ranga Agriculture University. And ICR Junior Research Fellowship, sir has been awarded with during his post-graduation. So sir has edited and authored 7 books, completed 7 research projects, and presented his research proposal finding at various events held in USA, Canada, Italy, Australia, South Korea, Japan, Ghana, and many more countries. So he is an editorial board member of the Indian Journal of Economics and Development and a peer reviewer of the several Scopus Index journals. So he is a guest editor of Frontiers in Sustainable Food System, and he is interested in teaching agriculture economics and executing transdisciplinary and multi-institutional research, fostering innovations and policy formulation leading to agricultural transformation. Sir, it is clearly evident from your resume that you are working very well in the field of research. You have so much publications, and you are working as an editor and reviewer in many reputed journals. So I hope, and it is my firm belief that you will go you will go now going to you are going to tell our participants more about the research publications and clear their doubts very nicely. So, sir, welcome, and I welcome you to this virtual podium for enlightening our participants of this program.
Thank you, Dr. Himani, for the kind introduction, and I also thank Dr. Kesha and team from Just Agriculture for giving me this opportunity. Today, I'll be talking about publication and outreach. Before that, I would like to confirm from the Just Agriculture team that whether the slides are visible.
Yes, sir, your slides are visible.
So to start with, so what I'm going to speak comes out of my experience in profession. It spans around 15 years, and also I have the experience of publishing close to 100+ publications. So in this presentation, I'll be telling about the different publication types and what are the publication ethics, followed by the publication process, right from draft to submission, and after successful outcome of the publication, then how to make it reach to different clients. Then, of course, we will conclude some take-home message. So, what is publication? Basically, publication is the final stage of your research. So when you talk about research, you should be very, you should know about what is the difference between research output, research outcome, and research impact. Basically, research output is the immediate one. So whatever the findings you are getting from the research, that is one is research output. Then research outcome is a publication. Of course, publication is not going to be the immediate one. It takes sometimes even it takes close to 3 years or even 4 or 5 years for the article to get published. And the research impact is what kind of impact the publication creates on the science and society. Maybe one indicator is the number of citation. There are several other indicators, but the number of citation that your article receives is one of the indicators. Obviously, it is the sole responsibility of the researcher. There are different types of publications, starting with the general articles, which doesn't focus on any specific issue. I mean, researchable issue. It may be very generic in nature. For example, COVID and what its impact of lockdown on some sector like agriculture. Then the next comes is the research article, where I will be talking more in detail right from the draft to submission process. A research article basically it deals with a specific problem and how we are going to address them. We'll add some information to the science as well as the review articles. So you are taking a specific topic and you are reviewing right from the seminal article to the what is the latest progress. And research communication is one which is a short form of the research article. For example, whenever you are doing any experimental research, normally a journal requires 3 years of data for validation. Suppose you have done the experiment for only 1 year, but you still want to publish, maybe research communication is one of the option through which you can make the audience to know the research. Then research note and the research article is almost same, but the difference is only the number of notes. Research news is something maybe a lab in a particular country gets some grant, so that is a kind of research news. A commentary is another form of publication. For example, doubling farmers' income is a kind of a mission statement given by the Honorable Prime Minister of India. So if you want to write anything about that particular statement, so that can be coming in the commentary category. Then book review, then we have policy forums. For example, if you want to write in policy statement through which you can improve a particular thing from a national agricultural policy, it can be written as a commentary or you can publish as a policy forum. And another form of publication is the book chapter. Here I will not be focusing much on the different types. I will be focusing only on two. One is research article and another one is preprint. Because these days, preprint are given a lot of weightage, particularly after the incidence of COVID. Preprint has become one of importance among the researchers. And there are a lot of servers that host the preprint. For example, SSRN that hosts the publications pertaining to social sciences. It is hosted by Elsevier. SSRN means Social Science Research Network. Then we have other servers like ArcGrid, then MedGrid, then BioArcGrid, preprint. That itself is a server that hosts publications without getting into the review stage. Then we have research. There are a lot of other preprint servers. I will be telling the benefit. What is the benefit of preprints in the subsequent slides. Now let us have some idea about the publication ethics. Like the research ethics, we also have some publication ethics. Basically, publication requires the honesty of the researcher so that he or she will bring some clarity in the research and accurate reporting. Then it should bring completeness in the findings, and also there should be some balance in reporting. That is, you should not favor for one side. And it should also avoid misleading information, and you should not report only selective data or information, and there should not be any ambiguity in reporting. So what I want to say is, researchers should have or should adhere to certain ethics, that is rules of conduct, technically known as publication ethics. So these should be generally agreed by the researchers when publishing the research output. For example, the data in which a researcher is working should not be fabricated. That is, they should not manipulate the data, or the data should not be falsified. And another ethic is plagiarism. So plagiarism is a very serious issue, even it may land you in interaction of the article. So plagiarism means you are copying or lifting any statement or any content from others doing the research. So of course, when you're writing any statement, you should write in your own words, and of course you have to give the citation. Suppose, let us take a definition. Definitions are going to change. So in that case, what you have to do, you have to give the definitions or certain quotes said by any personality. So you have to give within quotation. So when you give within quotation, it means that you have taken as such. So that will be neglected during the plagiarism. Then another form of ethics is the self-citation. So there is always people tendency to self-cite their article while writing a paper. So there is no hard and fast rule that what should be the threshold for self-citation. So usually, I would say maybe not more than 4 or not more than 5 if you are writing a topic in which you have a lot of expertise. But I have come across some papers in which more than 50% of the cited references belong to the one of the other, usually corresponding. So that should not be the case. Then multiple submission should not be entertained because what authors do is, the corresponding author, due to frustration, because whenever you submit any article in the journal, so it takes some time. Right from the first decision to acceptance. So maybe it may take even 2 months or 3 months or sometimes even years. So to avoid that, what authors do is they submit the particular article to multiple journals, which should not be done. Because I would say one example from my own experience. One of my colleagues, one who worked in my colleague's lab, she submitted a paper to in the same paper to 2 journals, and unfortunately, the 2 journals sent the paper to a same reviewer. So then the reviewer wrote a mail to the concerned journal that I have received the paper from the other journal. So then they wrote to the lab head, and it became a very serious issue. And that blacklist. Then another issue regarding the publication is authorship. Who give authorship? Sometimes what happens, a person who gives or who contributes a lot to the paper, but he or she name could not be appear in the list of authors. That is called as ghost authorship. And sometimes due to getting increasing the chance for publication, they include the honorary authorship, which means that any famous personalities will be included as one of the authors, just to increase the chance of getting acceptance. And guest authorship may be like your guide or your head of the department without any contribution. If you are including, then it becomes a guest authorship. These are all some of the things which you should avoid. Basically, what I want to say is there should not be any improper author contribution or attribution publication which you are associated. So these are all some of the basic ethics we should take care while starting or while submitting the article. So now how to or on what basis you are going to include the authorship, that I will be telling in the subsequent part of this presentation. Now coming to the next part of today's lecture, that is the publication process, right from draft to submission. So when you start a paper, so obviously the starting point is on which topic you are going to work. So there is a thumb rule that the topic should cover the 5 W's and 1 H. That is what, why, where, when, and how. So what means what exactly the particular researcher want to achieve, and what are the facts available, and what should the researcher in order to do find a solution to the particular problem. Similarly for why, then why the researcher should achieve a solution to the problem. Then how that solution will be different in different cross situations. Then where the issue has arisen, maybe at a particular region level or particular global level. So where is the issue is prevailing? Then who is going to be a targeted audience to whom I am going to please them? So who cares about this problem and who is going to be affected by this problem? And finally, when did the issue, there is a problem, research problem arise? So when you address all these questions, obviously you generate a good topic for application. Then again, once you decide the whole area, obviously there will be different steps that you have to follow right from introduction to sources and references. So every researcher has their own style. So what I will be doing is I'll be sharing my own experience through which I begin from drafting to the submission stage. So what usually I do is first I will make a outline of the paper. Preferably this has to be done by the corresponding author. So if you see this slide, on the right side, you can see an outline which says about the perception of consumer preference for GM foods. So here I have tried to analyze the perception of consumer through bibliometric evidence, and finally I want to come out with some policy suggestions. So initially, what I did is I conceptualized a design. So what I want to present in this paper. So for the particular paper, so I finalized the major headings and subheadings under the major heading. Then I noted some bullet points. What are the different contents under each head and subhead? So obviously, so whatever I'm saying, it may be right or it may not be. So what I do is once I prepare the outline, I share with my co-authors or sometimes with some of my mentors also to get some improvement. Usually, people what they do, they write email to their co-authors and invite their comments or suggestions. So this, in my opinion, this consumes a lot of time because person A doesn't know what person B is in it. Person C doesn't know what person A is in it. So these days, what I suggest is you can better share the outline in the Google document, and then you can share the link to all the co-authors and the mentors who you expect that they will give suggestions. So in this case, the advantage is person A knows what person B is in. So that will give some clarity. So it will also reduce the time for the corresponding author to incorporate this solution. So this is what I used to do. So I distribute to the collaborators. Then after that, once the outline is finalized, then I share with the co-authors. Then I request them to contribute based on their expertise. Some may be good in writing the introduction part. Some may be good in doing the analysis. So based on the expertise, so I share the outline and I tell them to do it so that things will be done within a certain time period. And then finally, as a corresponding author, I will be taking the final. So big journal, I have to submit. Of course, I will take the suggestion, but ultimately all the decisions has to be taken by only one person. You are obviously the corresponding. So when you write any paper, one thing is always comes to picture is the proofreading, because we are not native speakers of English. So obviously there will be a lot of errors in the manuscript. So I suggest a few options like you can share the text in the Google Doc. So it will suggest some errors if there is any error. Then if you have a subscription to Grammarly, it's a very good software. That also helps to proofread the paper. And apart from this, there are other online tools also. Once the outline is ready, the next step is the different parts of the paper. So let us discuss one by one. The first the section I would like to discuss is the introduction. So introduction basically, as a thumb rule, it should be 1/10 of the paper, which means that if your paper runs for about 20 pages, so obviously your introduction should be around 2 pages. And whatever the information you are writing during the initial phase, that is the initial paragraph, it should stand on its own, which means that you write on your own without any citations. May not be possible in all cases, but try to write a paragraph on its, it stands on its own. Then after that, you can write some statements, supporting evidences. Of course, you have to cite the data. And one more thing, which always I suggest to my students and lab members is the review should be a part of the introduction, unless the journal specifically shares that review should be a separate section. And another important thing to have some clarity on the introduction is to highlight the rationale, that is, what is the motivation behind the paper and what this paper going to address the research gap. There are a lot of research gap which I have given in the picture form. On the right side of the slide, you can see the different research gap types, starting from evidence gap, then knowledge gap, whether there is practical knowledge gap, or your paper is going to address the methodological gap or the empirical gap or theoretical gap, or even sometimes population gap. That is, sometimes what happens, a paper which might be having a good research finding, but might have done the investigation within a very small sample size. In that case, your paper may address the same issue using a large sample size. That also can be called as addressing a research gap, that is particularly how specifically we can call it as population. Then you have to state the uniqueness of the study. So what uniqueness this study has. And finally, you have to end the chapter with the specific objectives. So the introduction should be very brief, crisp, and it should be interesting. Because as when I review some of the papers, generally what I found is authors used to bring a lot of information. Of course, information is needed, but when you put too much information on introduction, sometimes it gets bored. The editor even may reject the paper if the introduction is not properly drafted. And one more thing I would suggest to the participants of this meeting is there is no need to mention the subsequent section and their contents in the introduction. That is, after stating the specific objective, there is no need to mention that section 2 will discuss about the different data collection methods and the different models used. Then section 3 will report the findings and results, and we will discuss the implications. Like that, no need to mention, because it is known that the subsequent section has some content. Okay, then just you can wrap up the introduction with the specific objectives of the study. So the previous slide was saying that the review should be a part of introduction, unless journal specifically says that review should be given as a separate section. There are a lot of ways through which you can write the review. For beginners, I would suggest when you're working on a specific topic, I have given some links in this slide. So, for example, if the connected papers, so when you click this link, so it will ask for a topic. If you give maybe like COVID and agriculture, so it will give the list of papers on COVID and agriculture. So it means that you will get a bunch of papers or a basket of papers which have been published on this topic. So it makes easy for the researcher to have a list of papers on a specific topic. Similarly, we have Skuast database, then the most popular is Google Scholar, then we have the Web of Science, PubMed, and then if the participants are from comics testing, they can use AG Console. So there are different web tools through which you can collect the list of papers and you can start writing the review. There are two ways of writing. One, theoretically, you can review what is the progress rate from the single paper to the progress. And recently, people used to have bibliometric visualization. That is, visually you are presenting the progress of the research. So I have given a sample bibliometric visualization on the right side of this slide. So this bibliometric visualization pertains to a paper which tells about the consumer perception and beliefs towards GM food. In that, a majority of the research on this topic is done by USA. So you can see the circle highlighting USA is bigger in size. So similarly, the next best country. So like based on the circle size, you can say a particular country is leading this research. So similarly, you can present the visual form pertaining to the keywords, pertaining to the leading researcher, pertaining to the lead journals which publish that topic. So like that you can present visually. So it's up to you to think about writing the review, whether in text form or in visual form. The next section is the data and methods. Usually this will be a combined section. So here you have to state the source of data and try to give the hyperlinks wherever it is available. Maybe like you might have sourced data from any published report. If the report is online, you can give as a footnote or endnote depending upon the journal. Suppose if you have sourced the data from India Stamp, you can give the web link. Then whatever the experimental design or the sampling design used for research, it has to be stated explicitly. Make sure that the data what you have used can be shared if it is asked by the editor or the reviewer during the review process. Because these days, even author statement where you have to disclose that your consent to share the data. So if you want to be on safer side, you can mention that data will be available on email. Share explicitly. Otherwise, if you want to share, you can share as a supplementary. Then, as a researcher, you have to mention the period of the study, whether it was the study was done in a specific year or maybe more than 1 year, that has to be specified explicitly. And when you are writing the method section, so for conventional tools like coefficient of variation or correlation coefficient or growth rates, these are very commonly used. So there is no need to explain, give the details or write the formulas, just to mention the method. But for other methods, which is not conventional, that you can describe briefly with appropriate citation. Suppose a particular paper deals with a new model development or even theoretical development, then you have to start from the basics. Another thing which a researcher should take care is writing the equations. For that, there are a lot of tools. The most widely used is equation editor. You can have this equation editor access in Word itself. I have given the screenshot of the equation editor. So once you click that, you will get some default equations, and you can select any one of the equation and customize according to the equation in which your paper is based. So the next section is the research and discussion. Most of the journals, it will be a combined section, most of the journals. But in some journals, if you see, results will be separate and discussion will be separate. So while formulating the outline, that time itself you can decide what might be the probable journals for which you are going to target. So if a particular journal has results separate and discussion separate, accordingly you can plan your. So for every journal there is a author guideline, so kindly follow that. But still, these days, majority of the journals have free format submission. It means that whatever draft you have, you can submit. Once the paper gets accepted, then you have to change the format according to the journal. So that kind of facility, a lot of journals are offering these days. But still, traditional journals are sticking to the journals template. So kindly read the guidance according to so whatever sections you have planned, so brief down as per the need of the section. For example, first, if you want to highlight the trend in a particular topic, what is a trend over years? You highlight what is trend. Then, when you want to supplement that trend with some tables or figures, because you don't have much space to explain all the figures in the table. So only salient findings are going to highlight. So after highlighting all the salient findings, then you conclude for each illustration. That is, for example, table 1. What is the core message of the table? Similarly, figure 1. You explain the figure. Okay. Then what is the core message from that figure? So like that you have to do for all the illustrations. Then discuss all the results with supporting evidence. So these can be done in two types. One is whatever the evidence favoring your findings. And that might be some evidence against your findings. So you have to, it should not be, that's what I'm saying in the ethics, that your research reporting should be balanced. This I already mentioned that you have to bring 1 or 2 lines summary for each illustration. That is, illustration means figures and changes. And after that, you conclude each section, and finally, while concluding the results and discussion, give 1 or 2 lines about the overall message from the results. The last core section of the paper is the conclusions. So conclusions should always begin right from introduction to R&D. That is results of discussion. It's basically an extended version of the statement. So the conclusion may have 2 paragraphs or 3 paragraphs. Initially, what I suggest is you conclude the whole paper in 1 paragraph. Then 1 or 2 lines you can write the limitations of the research, because every research has their own limitations. For example, in social sciences, usually the research is done based on sample survey. So whatever the sample you have taken, it should be representative. And sometimes what happens, research done on a particular state may not be applicable to the rest of the region. There might be some limitation because it should suit the other climatic conditions. So that kind of limitations you have to report or highlight in the reporting section. Then if it is a social science paper, obviously journal expects some policy implications. So what kind of policies we are going to do. And as a reviewer or editor, I always expect 1 or 2 lines on future directions of the research. Sometimes what happens, authors may not be interested to disclose because that may lead to some other paper. But sometimes when you give some directions, authors may pick from that and they can write a paper. But to test your honesty, I always expect the authors to give 1 or 2 lines on the future directions of the research. These are the 4 major heads which you should be very careful in drafting the paper. Then after that, we have other sections. Doesn't mean that these sections are not important, but it is also important, but not as like the 4 sections. Like acknowledgements that you have to give whoever helped in drafting the paper or in data collection. The author's contribution. These days, majority of the journals are explicitly stating the authors to give the contribution made by each author. That has to be given some conflict of interest. Whether you have any conflict of interest, you have to give yes or no. Then whether you are ready to share the data with the clients, that is the audience. Another important section in the publication is time consuming in comparison to others is the referencing section. So whenever you distribute the papers to your co-authors, everyone gives the references in their own style. So as a corresponding author, what I suggest is, I always say my co-authors that this is a style I wish to have. Usually I go by the journal's guidelines or else AP, that is the most widely American Psychological Association style. That is the most widely used referencing style by many of the journals. Apart from that, we have Chicago style, and we have Modern Language Association, and we have a lot of other style references. So you can do manually, but it is time consuming. What I suggest is, so you can use software managers that can set your referencing style. There are some popular softwares like Mendeley and Zotero. There are several other software also, but what I mentioned in the slide is the most widely used. So you can download this software, and when you upload the papers to this software, then it will give the option which reference style you wish to have, maybe AP or Chicago style or so whatever. So once you click, automatically all the references will be formatted according to the style you specify. So this software basically reduces the time taken for formatting the references. Once the paper is ready, there will be always thing to discuss about the authorship credit. So how to give the authorship credit? Whom to give, not to give. This can be done using a 5-point scale. So whatever I have mentioned that was given by the International Committee of Medical Journal Editors. So based on the score, for example, if the score is 0, which means that there is no contribution from the particular person. So in that case, name should not be included in the author's list. Then if the score is 1, it means that it is a negligible contribution. In that case, name has to be acknowledged. So we should not give as an author, but you can give in the acknowledgement. Then after that, the score ranges from 2 to 5. That is, 2 means minimal contribution, then 3 means significant contribution, then 4 means major contribution, and 5 is the core contribution. So irrespective of the score, whether it is 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, you have to give the particular author as a contributor to the paper. Now the question is how to arrive this score. So again, the International Committee of Medical Journal Editors have given me a format to which you can arrive the score. The table which I am presenting now shows the score pertaining to contribution of the author to such paper. For example, concept development. So for that, suppose study material collection. Usually, what they do, they outsource it. So that gets a score of 1. Similarly, data collection, if it is by outsourced person, then it also gets a score. So as I already told, 1 means you should not give authorship, but you can give. So based on the score attained as given in this table, that is contribution by the authors to such paper. So you can decide the authorship. So if you have confusion, whom to give from. Another important thing during the publication process is finding a right journal for your paper. So initially, the dilemma find a journal whether we are publishing in a national journal or international journal. So usually I suggest is go for the field journals, that is specific subject journals. If your paper is multidisciplinary, then you can use different journals as an option, and you can select the specific journal based on the suggestion given by the search. For example, HCL has its own journal suggesting stringent also having like Taylor and Francis. So the major publication houses have links for finding the right journal. So you have to give the title of the paper, abstract, and then you have to select the domain, broad domain, maybe like agriculture or engineering or computer science. If you select the broad domain, then the search engine will list the most probable journal based on the content of the abstract. Doesn't mean that whatever the journal finder is suggesting, that is the perfect. It's not like that. Sometimes it may give wrong results also. So We have to decide which one is the best based on the options. As a researcher, what I do. So if it is a free journal, obviously I know which journal has to be submitted. And if it is a multidisciplinary paper, I go by the journal either option. Everyone has their own way of choosing the paper. So for me, impact factor then days to first decision. Some journals give the first decision within 1 week. Some journals give the decision in 3 weeks, and some may give may take 3 months, 6 months. So that also will be one of the decision criteria for me. The acceptance rate. So what is the rate of acceptance if I submit to a particular journal? Then whether the journal publishes the paper as a open access or subscription. So open access basically, so everyone has access to the paper without the readers won't pay the fee, but the authors has to pay something usually. But there are very few journals wherein the articles has been published in open access without any payment to the publication. There are some journals which does. For example, Current Science. The Current Science is a very renowned journal in the Institute of Science. So that journal publishes all the articles as open access, and you don't need to pay any fee. So you have to decide which is the most important criteria, whether impact factor or is to first decision or acceptance rate or of course, apart from this, there are several other factors. I have highlighted only 4 because usually these 4 will be the deciding criteria for choosing a journal from the list. Once you decide the journal, so what are the requirements for submission of the article? So again, it depends on journal to journal. I always suggest to write a cover letter. The majority of the authors, they don't write cover letter. So write a cover letter in which you state what is needed in this paper, who are all the target audience, like maybe researchers or the target audience is a group which works on a particular topic like biofortification or like that. Then if any preprint is available, as I already mentioned, that preprint means publishing the paper on preprint servers without submitting to peer review. So why it has to be done, that I will be explaining in subsequent. Then in the cover letter, you can also list the potential reviewers. Some journals, they ask probable reviewers section, but if you are mentioning in the cover letter, that's also fine. Some journals these days they ask for highlights. What are the highlights of this paper? So highlights usually run 5 to 6 bullet points, and majority of the journals have word limit. Usually it is 80 words. So you have to give 5 to 6 bullet points. That is the major findings of the paper. The graphical abstract, that is another requirement by the modern journals. And certain journals also ask for video abstract. One example for graphical abstract I have presented on the slide. So basically, graphical abstract visually presents your research. So this graphical abstract which I have presented shows the bibliometric visualization of cellular agriculture research. So in that I have used 212 articles. What are the major keywords that appear in 212 that is given here as a word cloud? Then using the BOS viewer, that is a free software used for bibliometric visualization. So the participants can download this software. So you have to give input file to the software. The input file can be downloaded from Scopus database or Web of Science database. There are different input files, maybe CSV file, or there may be some other files which is required by the US software. Usually I go by CSV file that we used to download. So once you give the input file, and there will be options to get the bibliometric coupling for authorship or keywords or institutions. So visually it presents the research progress and which country is leading on a particular topic. Those kind of information. This is one example of graphical abstract. So there are some tutorials available online which will guide you to present a better graphical abstract. Then another point as an author that to keep in mind is giving the line. So in Word, there is an option or provision to give the line number. So majority of the journals, they ask the manuscript without author details, and some journals, they ask with author details. So for that only, I'm suggesting kindly read the author guidelines. So whatever is required by the journal, whether with the author details or without author details, or sometimes some journals they ask illustrations on a separate file. Some journals they ask illustrations, that is tables and figures in continuous presented in within the text. So depending upon the journal, you have to prepare your manuscript. In some journals they ask for the disclosure statement, that is whether data will be available if requested, and if there is any conflict of interest that you have to disclose. I always suggest authors to give supplementary files. That is, the main tables, main figures you can give in the main manuscript, and apart from that, if at all if you want to present the information in table and figure format, present in a supplementary file. Again, this supplementary file, you have the option to give whether it should be reviewed or it should not be reviewed as a best judge. So you can give with the review. So once the requirement for the journal is fulfilled, then you can start submitting the paper. So now let us discuss a few minutes about the preprint. What is preprint? Basically, preprint, I did mention that publishing a draft article without sending to peer review. Either you can do yourself by posting your paper in different preprint servers like SSR and Axio, Research Gate. Then we have BioAccess. So there are a lot of preprint servers that host your first. Why preprint is suggested? One thing is you can claim the first one. Suppose, for example, 4 or 5 researchers are working on a particular topic. So obviously, everyone will be interested to claim as the first. I have reported first. So all the 5 researchers they submit to a journal. Whichever journal publishes first becomes the first preprint. But when you do as a preprint, whoever hosts in the server, so that paper will be claimed as the first one. Particularly during COVID, a lot of researchers they want to establish that they are referred to the first. So because of that, this preprint publication has assumed a lot of significance. And when you host in a preprint server, DOI number will be given, that is digital object index. So it means that you have a specific URL connected to the paper. So whoever clicks that URL, it will be directed to the paper, and the paper will be available open access, which means that anyone can read the paper and can give their comments. So sometimes what happens, the comment will help you to improve the paper, and that improvement will help, maybe it will facilitate for example, see the preprint which I have shared on this slide. Initially, I started a preprint on pandemic-led food waste anomalies and supply chain disruption evidence for COVID-19 incidents in India. So that was the initial draft I uploaded in SSR. So after that, several comments came from leads and random persons. I incorporated, I tried to incorporate whatever I can do. And then I submitted to a journal called the Socioeconomic Planning Sciences, which of course got accepted. But you see the time period between the date I wrote and the date I got the acceptance. So I wrote the paper, or I posted the paper on 28 August 2020. And this paper, after regular rounds of review, it got accepted somewhere between April 2020, almost 1.5 years. What preprint helped me? Since I uploaded the paper on the preprint server, it helped me to get, of course, the citations which I would have missed if I didn't upload in the preprint server. And it also helped me to improve the draft through the comments raised in the forum. And even I also had an experience of editor invitation to submit a paper for a particular journal. Then also, so these are all some of the advantages of preprint. So I request all the participants to utilize the benefit of the preprint. So whenever you are writing any paper, so once the first draft is ready and if you are confident that this will not have much major changes in the future, we can start uploading in any preprint server and then we can share the link. So this will lead to even some editors can invite you to submit the paper to the journals which they are editing. The next part of today's presentation is the publication outreach. So far, I have been talking about the process of publication. So once the paper gets accepted, so you have to take it to the audience. Of course, the journal also has their own way of taking to the audience, but as a paper author, so you have more responsibility to take the findings to several stakeholders. So that's what I say. Research is incomplete unless the findings are written, published, and communicated to others. You might have written a technical research paper which may not be understood by the common man. So what you have to do as a researcher, you have to simplify the findings to a common language which can be understood by the normal people. That is, the non-expert also can easily understand the findings. So maybe 4 or 5 salient findings, and you can share the paper along with the DOI link so that it reaches different. Basically, the publication outreach gives meaning and purpose to the research time. It helps to create a positive impact in the long run, and it also adds to the existing body of knowledge. It helps to get the feedback from the stakeholders and experts. And your research also is made known to your colleagues and peer group, and it brings some recognitions. Whatever the effort you took, it helps to have some recognition. How to do this? So these days, everyone has access to web media and social media. Usually, what I do whenever a paper gets acceptance or when I get the DOA number, so I used to share in different platforms, starting from Twitter, circulated, academia. So whatever the social media in which I used to share. So based on the comment receipts, sometimes it also helps to get some idea for the next paper. Apart from that, I also share the paper through email to the mentors, and I also share the link in my email signature. So whenever I write any email to anyone, so the link of the paper also goes along with the email and the signature. So if anyone is interested, he or she can have it. Read the paper. Another way of popularizing your research, particularly when you are presenting any poster. So obviously, in posters being a non-editable format, you cannot give any links. So in that case, what I suggest is, so the links can be converted into QR code. So there are a lot of online tools which if you give the URL of a paper, so that will convert the URL to QR code. That is quick response code. So if you see the poster that is shown in the slide, So at the bottom we have two QR codes. So if you have your scanner, if you scan that, so that will lead to the paper. So this is one way through which you can popularize your research. Another important thing in academia is citation achievements. So obviously, when you publish a paper, as an author, you will be always interested to increase the citation. So how can there are certain criteria, I would say, thumb rules to follow them for citations. May increase. I'm not assuring that citations will increase. May increase. One is the title, like the title of your publication. Try to avoid punctuation marks in your title. Then, as I already mentioned, that take advantage of preprint service so that your results are published early. The time period between preprint and actual acceptance of the paper usually long. So during that time, so your preprints will be cited. And again, in preprint servers, you have the option to update the paper. So the final version of the paper, that is the accepted version of the paper, you can update it in the preprint server. And try to avoid the mention, try to avoid naming a country in the title or abstract or things. Usually, while writing a review or research paper, no one will give the country name. Okay. So maybe like a specific topic, sustainable development goals. Specifically, yeah. So try to avoid mentioning a country in the title. Then try to link the paper to the supporting data in your open access repository. There are several online repositories which host your data file. So once you post your data file and you share the link in your paper, so that will increase the likelihood of citation. But try to avoid hyphens. Try to share the code. Code means the analysis code. So you would have used some R code or data code or even SPSS syntax. So in that case, if you share the codes, then automatically readers will be excited to try the codes. Then if they find it is exciting, so they will send you. These are all some of the ways and means through which the paper citation can be increased. Then how to boost your H index. The H index means, for example, I have given my own Google Scholar screenshot. So here the H index is 19, which means that 19 papers have a minimum number of 19 citations. How to increase? Of course, overall citation is also important, but if you want to compare 2 or 3 researchers on a particular domain, H index will be used as an indicator. So for that, you can collaborate with senior researchers. So papers with famous first authors usually get more citations. Obviously, you have to choose a journal. If a journal publishes a paper open access, then the chance of citation increases. Then think about your audience. So accordingly, you have to track the paper. And as I mentioned, that try to share the published paper link in different platforms so that it reaches many, and obviously the citation also, the chance for getting cited. What are the don'ts of research and publication? So far we have seen the what should be done. Now I'm going to say about what should not be done. Plagiarism, I already told. There are several softwares through which you can detect the extent of plagiarism, like generating the plagiarism. There are several softwares through which you can detect the extent of plagiarism. Usually, journals keep 15%, but in academic institutes like others, the level of plagiarism is 10%. That is text similarity. Then don't alter the data and don't try to violate the copyright. Suppose if you are presenting a table which is already published in the paper, so try to mention the source. So in some journals, they always they try to take the permission by email. So better you write an email to the particular corresponding author of the paper, get the consent, and then you can present it. Initially, I told that avoid multiple submission. together, even if the decision takes long time. But don't submit the paper to multiple. Regarding the authorship disputes, so you can follow the five-point scale, and that will help you to decide the credit for authorship. And the last one is avoid predatory journals. There are several predatory journals which tries to take money and publish without any peer review. So if you are confused which one is a predatory and which one is a legit journal, so you can Google for the deals list and UGC CAR list, which list the probably the predatory journals, so that try to avoid those journals. To sum up whatever we have discussed during this session, if you want to be a good researcher and want to publish good papers, follow the publication ethics, try to collaborate with your fellow researchers so that you also will grow and your team also will grow. In publishing, try to choose an appropriate journal and given your needs, maybe manufacturer or acceptance based on the criteria you choose yourself. After choosing the journal, read the author's guidelines before submission. Again, I'm saying try to publish the draft as a preprint so that advantages of preprint. And there are some journals like Nature which doesn't allow preprint. So that also you should be. Suppose if you are working on a very novel thing and you are the first one in the world to report it. So in that case, and if you are targeting a journalist with Nature, you have to give undertaking that this information is not available in public domain. So that also I'm cautioning you. Be careful if you are going to work on a very novel idea. Forget about preprint. Directly you have to submit to the journals with Nature. And sometimes some papers they get rejected continuously. So in that case, the best one is preprint. If you don't have the option to publish in a field journal or any multidisciplinary journal, better to publish in a preprint. So now you will get some satisfaction that it is in public domain and you will get the findings. Once the paper gets accepted, try to share the paper or links using multiple platforms so that the paper gets organized. So with this, I wrap up my presentation, and before that, I would like to show some of the tools which can facilitate the researchers to draft the submitted paper, right from plagiarism to drafting, reference management. Recently, I came across one tool called dictation. So I have given the link. So in that web link, so if you speak, automatically it gets typed. The text gets typed. So if someone is lazy or if someone is not good in typing, so you can avail the benefit of this web link so that whatever you speak, it gets converted to text, and that text can be used for email or introduction. So with this, I wrap up my presentation. And again, I thank the Just Agriculture team for giving me an opportunity. As I told, these days the academic success depends on the research and application. So keep in mind, I wish all the participants got some at least knowledge, some information, new information from this presentation. So I have shared my contact details. If you have any doubts pertaining to this presentation or even in general, so you can contact me at any time. So I'll be to clear up this. So thank you. Thanks again for the opportunity, and I thank the participants for your patience.
Thank you, sir. You have very beautifully explained about the various aspects of writing a research paper, right from the beginning, like from the introduction part to the conclusion, references, and the various softwares to be used, about author contribution scale, publication process, like everything you have covered. And your presentation and your talk is self-explanatory, but still, and I'm sure that most of the participants must have got the best knowledge and must clarity about the topic, but still I have got few questions, so with your permission, should I ask the questions?
Yeah, sure, sure.
Yeah. So in the reference part you have mentioned about the software EndNote. So there are a few section of people who advise us to not go for EndNote or other softwares for writing the references, and some suggest to use the softwares. So what should we do? Like we should go for the software like EndNote, or we should do it manually?
No, manually it's a time consuming, right? So for example, if you're writing a review paper, generally when I review a paper, I used to give more than 100 references. So putting all those references, it takes a lot of my time. So in that case, manually, I'm not saying that EndNote should be used. You can use any software, whichever you are comfortable. But for me, I would say manually is best. That will help to format your references in whatever style. Because suppose if a paper gets rejected by a journal, then you will be submitting the paper to some other journal which might be having a different formatting style. So again, if you are doing manually, again it will take time. So once the papers are all set in the manually software, so the first journal may require API, style, so automatically I can choose it. The second paper may, the second journal may look for Chicago style. So in that case, if I click Chicago, automatically things will get changed. So obviously, software is best, but you still, if you feel that you have ample time and you have patience, go for mine. It's up to you.
Okay, sir. Sir, another thing which you have mentioned in your talk, that if we go for pre-printing of the paper, some good journals like Nature, they don't accept. There are chances of rejection. So, are there any other journals who do the same? Like if we go for preprints, then we have to face any issues in publishing our paper in any other good journals?
No, one is Nature, because since I have submitted to Nature Climate Change, I came across. Otherwise, I was also not aware of this. And another journal is Emerald Publication House. If you have, I'm not sure how many of you have come across. So when I wrote a paper and I published, as a preprint, then I wrote to the editor that I have already have this as a preprint, and this paper is suitable for your journal. Whether you are interested to, consider for publication. Then immediately he wrote that since it is already in preprint, I cannot accept it. Either you remove from the preprint server and you submit, or else you look for some other thing. So again, it depends upon the journal to journal. But these days, almost all the stranger journals and elsewhere journals, while submitting itself, they will ask for, are you interested to post in the preprint? Because elsewhere has SSR. Springer has also a specific preprint server. Similarly, if you submit to MDPI, they have a preprint server called preprint itself. So if you give yes, obviously it will be hosted in the
Okay, sir. Sir, another query I have got about preprints. So, somebody want to know that the preprints journal, like, what are they like? That they have some rating or impact factor or anything. Like, if we are publishing in preprint and later on we are not able to publish it anywhere else, so how it's going to be?
No, preprint servers, they don't have any impact. Okay. It's an outlet to, what you call popularize research. Okay. In case if any journal or if any chief editor-in-chief asks that it is already in preprint, you have the provision to remove the paper from the preprint server. That you can do it. So you can remove the paper and then you can submit to the concerned journal. That you can do. But otherwise, it doesn't have any impact factor, and you cannot use that as a paper for your academic promotion or whatever.
Okay, sir.
But the preprint is indexed in Scopus. Okay. Most of the indents or indexing corpus. You can mention it as a working paper that you can use.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Another query is from the researchers, like when they are submitting a paper from their thesis, so they came across a problem like journals are telling them that your paper is showing some similarity index or plagiarism, and that too from their own thesis, which is available online. So how we can just tackle this thing?
This is a very, interesting question also. In fact, many have come across this. Usually, any university, they doesn't post the thesis immediately. They will take maybe close to 2 or 3 years. Even if the university hosts the thesis immediately, you can write to the concerned editor that this is your own thesis. So obviously, that should not be considered. Okay. And if at all, if it is not from your thesis, there are some softwares like Grammarly, which can be used as a paraphrasing tool, which means that if you give a sentence, it will change the sentence without changing the meaning. That also can be done. But in case if some editor is saying that even if it is from your thesis, and if I cannot accept, I am sorry, there is no other option. The only thing is you can intimate your university to remove the thesis from the server. It is the only thing.
Okay, sir. Sir, another the last question is that you have mentioned about the graphical abstract and the video abstract. So should we always go for submitting a graphical or video abstract, or we can just go without it also, or it's depending upon journal, like how we need to submit a paper, like while submitting a paper, should we always go for this or not?
I suggest it is always better to go with the graphical abstract because it will increase the citations. I have experienced that. There are some journals, by default you have to submit. It's a mandatory. So in that case, you cannot skip it. But otherwise, majority of the journals will give as an option, either the graphical or video abstract. So if you're interested, you can submit. But usually when I see option, I usually submit the graphical abstract.
Thank you, sir.
I have a template, so obviously it is easy for me to prepare the graphical abstract. Hardly it takes only 10 or 20 minutes.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for answering all the question, and thank you for the available information. We are done with the question, and I hope all of the participants have gained a lot of knowledge from you, and they have gained the clarity about their questions also. So thank you for joining, sir, and sparing your valuable time with us.
Thank you. Thanks, sir.
Thank you, sir. So dear participants, thank you for joining today, and your presence has surely delighted us. So for next session, we'll join tomorrow, and the link for the session will be shared in your respective WhatsApp groups. So once again, thank you all and have a great evening.